Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ben here. I am back again today doing another video, and the subject of today's video is going to be categorizing every Survivor winner and what type of winner they were. So basically I'm going to be going through all 40 seasons, so spoiler heavy, so if you don't want to get seasons of Survivor spoiled, I suggest that you skip around the video. I'll say the title of I'll say the season before I say the winner. So like if you hear season 1 and then I'll say the winner after that, so then you can maybe skip ahead a little bit. Sorry I don't have timestamps or anything like that, but just be forewarned, if you're going to watch the video, you're going to have seasons of Survivor spoiled. And I have a few different types of winners that I'm going to categorize them as and explain why I put them in that category. They're categories that I came up with, so they're nothing that anybody else has. But yeah, so that's what we're going to do today. Hope you guys have some enjoyment out of this, and if you do, check out some of my other Survivor videos or something like that, or leave a comment with agreeing or disagreeing with me. And some of them are going to be hard to categorize, or some of the categories are somewhat similar. So I guess you'll just kind of see what I mean when I go through here. So first season, Richard Hatch, Borneo, and he is kind of what I say is the prototypical mold, I would say, or like maybe the most frequent appearance, but that is a social strategist. To me, that's somebody who basically is thinking more strategically, but is basically socially good enough that people don't resent them at the end and are willing to vote for them. Richard, he basically was the core member of the alliance that dominated the game, and at the end he was a decent enough person that people were willing to vote for him. Some people consider him a villain, but there are a lot of different points in season 1, like at the merge, Kelly quote calls Richard like a sweetheart, and so that just shows you that he really wasn't perceived as like a bad guy or anything like that. He was a strategic player who was socially good enough to get people to be willing to vote for him at the end. So that is our tip, I'm guessing that's going to be what most of the winners fall into, but he is the first prototype. Then you have number 2 winner from Survivor Australian Outback, Tina Wesson. Again, to me, a social strategist, leaning a little bit more on the social, but again, she did dominate strategically as well. She forms an early alliance with Keith, pulls Colby in, kind of is running the show on the first tribe. At the merge, they get into a position where they're up in the numbers. They pick off the other tribe. They pick off the people within their own tribe who aren't part of that really core alliance. And then she's pretty much never in danger of getting voted out of the season. And for that reason, she gets to the end rather easily. And then very likable too, so she was able to get people to not care that she voted them out, basically. Season 3, Africa. This is a different type of winner now, and this is what I'm going to call a second in command. And the winner of Survivor Africa is Ethan Zahn. He was basically second in command to Lex the whole season, and got fortunate that Lex got voted out at Final 3, so he was able to win the game. Pretty straightforward in the name itself too. He was kind of always in the majority, but wasn't the one leading the pack, and for that reason, he was, to me, he was the second in command. Lex was the one making the decisions. Ethan was kind of just going along with it, and got fortunate that Lex got booted at Final 3. Next, Vesepia, who I am calling another category called Social Butterfly. Vesepia basically never had any strategic prowess in the game to me. She did make a couple of decisions, but they weren't like, I think they kind of made sense when she made them, and they weren't like astronomically life-altering or game-changing. So to me, I'm putting her in at Social Butterfly. She really got through the latter half of the game just on being good socially with the opposing tribe. Rob has like multiple confessionals when he says like Vesepia is just sucking up to them and like playing a really good social game to get far. And so to me, she is the Social Butterfly category, where she basically gets by on being like super likable. Next we have let's see here, season 5, Thailand, Brian Heidick. He is an all-arounder. This is kind of the easiest one to talk about. They dominate the game socially. They're good with people. They get enough people on their side to like them and be willing to vote for them at the end. They're good strategically. They make the right moves at the right time, and they have some challenge prowess as well. I think Brian won like 3 individual immunities, so he kind of had the whole package, an all-around winner. Season 6, Jenna Maraska. This is another new category, a immunity goat, which is a category that, of course, I made all these up, but to me what that means is like basically they were perceived as a goat, but then they went on an immunity run towards the end of the game that put them into a position to have more on their resume than they would have initially had they gone to the final tribal without that. So Jenna actually, I think, is tied for the record for most immunity wins by a woman on the show. She has 4. She won 2 in like mid-merge, and then she won the final 2 immunities. So I think that really booned her social or her game at the end, and she would have definitely been voted out if not for the 2 immunity wins. So they were kind of the thing that gave her a resume to at the end be able to win. And this is to me a weaker kind of winner where they don't really have anything on their resume but their immunity wins, and they're probably facing a weaker person in the final 2 as well. And of course, Matt was a weak opponent, so Jenna benefited from that. So yeah, an immunity goat, where they're basically a goat if they didn't have the immunity wins around their neck. And they probably wouldn't have gotten to Final 3 either way without the immunities. Season 7, Sandra. She's a hard one. But I'm, again, so to me it's between 2 categories. Social butterfly and what I call a shielded winner. And so I'll kind of try and give a distinction here. Social butterfly, Sandra was really well liked by a lot of people, especially those on the jury. Apparently she really didn't like Lil, but people on the jury besides Fairplay really liked her. So to me but she didn't make any strategic moves really the whole game. So to me it's between that and then a shielded winner is somebody who basically is taken to the end game because their opponents think that they're going to be a goat. Jenna Maraska was kind of close to this too, but because she was in the majority for a decent amount of the merge, I didn't put her in that category. But to me, I'm going to lean towards because the argument is that Johnny Fairplay allowed Sandra to get to the end game because he thought he could beat her in the finale. But I actually think that he didn't have as much control as he thought in that end game. So I'm going to say she won being a social butterfly where just a lot of people liked her come the end game. But she was kind of close to being a hybrid between shielded in that she never really was a threat to go home because a person was dragging her along. Or another word for shielded could be like a perceived goat, but not an actual goat, and we'll get into that later. But yeah, that's kind of what the shielded category means. But we'll have other people who fall into that later. But I'm going to say Sandra, Season 7, Social Butterfly. Season 8, we have Amber. She's between shielded and a second in command. It kind of depends on how much you think she was involved in the decision making. I'm going to say that she was shielded and that basically Rob made all the moves and got all the heat for it, and she kind of just benefited from being the other person at Final Tribal. And so to me, she was kind of like Rob had probably initially wanted to team up with her because he thought that she would kind of be a goat, and she kind of was. And to me, she really only won because Rob was getting a lot of heat. So to me, she's a shielded winner because Rob shielded her from getting all the blowback. Season 9, Chris. He's a new category I'm going to call, well, he's kind of a hybrid of 2. One is an immunity runner. He did go on an immunity run, like an immunity goat, where actually not even an immunity goat, that's not right. But basically he got this long immunity run to get to the end. And I think he's kind of that, but then he's also this other one that I call a scrapper, which is just kind of like you're kind of always on the bottom, but you just figure out ways to keep going forward. There are other good examples like this that are coming up, but he's a combination of the 2. So he was a scrapper when he didn't have immunity, but then his final immunity run, obviously he becomes that category. So he's a hybrid of a scrapper and an immunity run. But of course, I don't think if he wouldn't have had that immunity run, my gut tells me he wouldn't have won the game because like he probably would have got voted out of Final 3. Okay, then we have Season 10, Tom Westman. He is, to me, I guess an all-arounder, but He's close to just being in an immunity run too, because actually you see his alliance want to take him out several times, but because he wins 5 individuals, they really don't ever have a great opportunity to take him out. But I think all around, he did make some strategic moves. He was socially very polite, and people liked him a lot. And then he was really good in challenges, obviously. So he was all around a good player. So he's an all rounder. 11, Danny Boatwright, scrapper. Um, she was basically on the bottom for a lot of her game, but just kept figuring out ways to integrate herself with others. And she's like a scrapper and a social butterfly. And the reason I distinguish her versus Vesepia is only a social butterfly because Vesepia essentially was like, I'm fine if I go home. Kind of same with Sandra. Like, they didn't really actively do much to keep themselves in the game. Whereas to me, Danny did a bit more like strategically than those two. So I'm putting her in the scrapper and hybrid of that and a social butterfly. 12, Aris. A really hard one to categorize. He's kind of like an all-arounder, but not that strong in any of the categories. He also kind of falls into second in command. I'm going to say he was really second in command to Sari and at times to Shane as well. He kind of just was willing to go with the flow and be in the majority and not do much, but then when it came to the end game and the people who were leading him were gone, he was kind of just like the last best option that was left, so he won. 13, Yule. He is going to be a social strategist, very good strategically, socially. He's very adept as well. He knew how to push all the right buttons in people to make them like him and not resent him, even though they voted him out. So social strategist. 14, we got Earl Cole, social strategist again. Also one of the most underrated winners in Survivor history. He's probably my favorite winner of the whole show, Earl Cole. I just want him to play again so bad. Kind of sad that he didn't get to play Winners at War, but of course he had a newborn right when Winners at War was about to start filming, so he didn't have the opportunity to go out there. They did call him and ask him to do it, but he turned it down because of the newborn. But he probably would have taken like Wendell or Adam's spot if he would have said yes. Because I think like Adam was one of the last people they asked to join the cast. But yeah, social strategist, really good game. Not really good in challenges, or like okay in challenges, but never won an immunity. But really good socially, really good strategically, and just knowing the right time to do the right moves. Beyond that, 15, we have Todd, a new category called Shrewd Strategist, which to me is like you backstabbed and you blindsided and you made a lot of really cutthroat moves. And socially, there were people that really resented you at the end. And in Final Tribal, you had to answer up for a lot of backstabbing, but ultimately, people looked past their bitter feelings and were able to respect your game, and you were able to own up your game enough where they didn't mind voting for you. And that's Todd. He was very shrewd in his strategy, and he wasn't apologetic, which is key for his game. But he also wasn't apologetic, and he wasn't ashamed of backstabbing people either. He kind of knew he had to do it to get ahead in the game, and he was able to convey that in a way in Final Tribal where people respected it. And there you go. 16, Parvati, social strategist, in that she was kind of the one who was really, actually you could argue that she's a second in command to Sari as well. It's really muddled whether like who was really the leader of that. So I'd say combination of second in command and social strategist, where like you could argue Parvati was the lead of the alliance. You could argue it was Sari. You could argue it was like kind of shared power amongst them. So a hybrid of the two. Season 17, Bob, definitely a immunity run, an immunity goat where he doesn't have anything on his resume besides immunity wins. Obviously one of the weakest winners ever, who didn't really have... He voted wrong like the majority of the game, actually, I think I remember. So that was kind of funny that like strategically he was terrible. Probably you could argue the worst strategic winner in Survivor history. Socially, obviously he's fine, people like him, but nobody wanted to vote for him. It just was that he was the best option of a bunch of bad options. 18, JT, all-arounder. Strategically, he's decent enough. Socially, really, really solid. And challenges, he did really good. Him and Tom Westman, very similar players to me. 19, Natalie, she is a shielded winner. Basically, Russell brought her to the end because he thought she was a GOAT, and then he was wrong because people... Basically, she was perceived as a GOAT, but he was so egregious socially that she was like the next best option, so people voted for her. Russell took all the brunt of their alliance blindsiding people. Kind of similar to Amber, but Amber and Rob, like how everybody hated Rob for his moves, but Amber was his second in command and kind of shielded by him. Same way Natalie was shielded by Russell. I'm not going to call Natalie second in command because I don't think she was really part of it, much of the strategy going on. So to me, she's a shielded winner or like a perceived GOAT. But then she ends up not being one. Season 20, Sandra, she's a shielded winner. Russell brought her to the end because same thing as Natalie. He thought he'd beat her and he thought that no one would ever vote for her, and he was wrong because people really liked her. And yeah, she's basically a perceived GOAT winner or a shielded winner as I interchange the two. 21, Fabio's an immunity run. Again, him and Bob are very similar. He voted very egregiously, was wrong most of the time, but he does have a really impressive immunity run at the end, so people thought that was enough to give him the win. 22, Boston Rob, all around strategy and challenge-wise, he's really good. Socially, he's really good with his own alliance, but interestingly, the jury actually didn't really like him, and they only voted for him because the other options were terrible. But socially, he was good enough. 23, Sophie, second in command, and a shielded winner. A combination of the two. She wasn't a perceived GOAT. She was just a shielded winner where Coach took all the blame, and she kind of benefited from all the moves that the Alliance made. And then a second in command where, Coach was the perceived figurehead, and she just kind of sat in the background and was able to benefit. Let's see here. 24, Kim, all-arounder, challenges, strategy, socially, had it all. 25, Denise, scrapper, went to every tribal council, was on the bottom for a lot of the time, able to integrate herself and just get by, though, so scrapper. And you might say, like, well, what's the difference between Vesepi and Denise kind of a thing? But, like, to me, Denise just had more strategy to her game. And to me, Vesepi was just much more passive for a greater time in the game. And just was like, I'm going to make friends and hope that it works out. Whereas Denise was like, I'm going to integrate myself socially and make sure it works out. Kind of like that Danny Boatwright archetype. I just think that Vesepi was passive for great portions of the game, so that's why I didn't put her in Scrapper and I put her in Social Butterfly. 26, Cochran, social strategist. Some people would argue all around, but I don't think he was really a challenge beast. I think he just happened to win like one or two. But social strategist, he was really good socially, strategically. He knew when to do everything he had to do, and he won. 27, Tyson. All around, good in challenges. He was good at socially, like people liked him well enough. In his final three, he's actually kind of like Boston Rob, where he gets the perfect final three to win, but if he had a different final three, he might have lost. But he kind of did a little bit of everything and is going to be an all-around. 28, Tony, shrewd strategy. Him and Todd are the only two in this category so far. Was unapologetic with cutthroat gameplay and blindsides and backstabs, but at Final Tribal, people were willing to respect the game and realize it was a game and not get their feelings too hurt, so he was able to take the win. 29, Natalie, scrapper. She finds herself at the bottom at certain points of her game, but she pulls herself up by her bootstraps. She takes back control, and she does end up winning the game. 30, Mike Holloway, immunity run. Goes on probably the most impressive immunity run to win a season ever, and I doubt it'll ever be repeated. There's not much more to say. He never really had to worry about it because he was just this force of nature who nobody could deal with. as far as challenges went. 31, Jeremy, all around game. Challenges, socially, strategically, had it all. 32, who's the winner of 32? Michelle. Scrapper, finds herself at the bottom after the Scott blindside and really has to work to integrate herself, much like Danny Boatwright and Denise. 33, Adam Klein, another scrapper, plays one of the most chaotic games for a winner ever, finds himself oscillating between being at the bottom of the totem pole and being in power so much, but again, a scrapper where he just figured out a way to position himself well to be in the end game, and through just him, he kind of is a player who I heard somebody previously say he works really well when things are chaotic, and that seemed to be the case on the season he won. 34, Sarah, shrewd strategist like Tony and Todd, backstabbed and blindsided a lot, and basically at Final Tribal was like, yeah, I did it, and I want to win the game, and I'm not going to apologize, but if you fell for it and I backstabbed you, it's kind of like bad on you instead of bad on me. And people were willing to respect it, even though socially a lot of people actually, I heard, resented her after Game Changers, who she played with, but they had to say, well, you did play a really good strategic game. 35, Ben, he's an immunity run. He won the game based on immunities and idols, and basically a poor man's version of Mike Holloway in Season 30. Season 36, Wendell, a second in command. Basically, him and Dom are going through the whole game together, and Wendell just ends up having the closer social bond with Laurel at the end. Him and Ethan played really similar games to me. Wendell and Ethan, that is. 37, Nick Wilson. You'd maybe say all-arounder, but I'd say scrapper. I think he oscillates between the top and the bottom of power a lot. Like, he's almost the first boot on the season, and then he goes on to win the game. So, yeah, I'd say he's more of a scrapper, where he does find himself at the bottom, and he's like blindsided at final 9 and like final 6, I want to say. So yeah, he's definitely never was like concretely in power the whole game. He was in trouble spots at some points. Okay, let's see here. Besides that, then we got 38, which is Chris Underwood. I'm not even going to put him in a category. I'm just going to call him the Chris Underwood category, because no other Survivor winner has ever won like Chris Underwood has. So yeah, he's in the Chris Underwood category of, yeah, I don't even know how to describe his game. I mean, he is the Advantage era winner, where he just won based on advantage, twist. Yeah, so. Season 39, Tommy, he is a social strategist, makes the right social moves at the right time, and people really liked him, so he, played a lot like Earl to me. So he's in that category. And then Season 40, Tony, he's all around. He really was a lot more likable than Season 28 from his fellow castmates. So he's socially good. Strategically, he made all the right moves at all the right times when he needed to. And then challenge-wise, he won 4 individual immunities. So he was really stout as far as challenges. And that's all I got for today, guys. It was a longer video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it interesting. And hope you tune in next time. Bye.